I'm Tara Nolan, and welcome to Savvy Gardening School. As the author of the best-selling books Raised Bed Revolution and Gardening Your Front Yard, I have gathered up a ton of advice from building a variety of raised beds over the years, watching other creative DIYers building raised beds, discovering improvements to designs, and chatting with fellow gardeners about their own successes and failures. I am sharing my tips in this course, which is called Raised Bed Basics, Tips to Getting Started Building a Raised Bed Garden. I thought I would start with some guidance for those who are considering a raised bed project and just don't know where to start. When I first moved to my current garden, I knew I wanted to add raised beds to the existing traditional in-ground vegetable garden. The garden was a bit hard-packed and misshapen and off to the side of the backyard. The reason I originally decided to add those raised beds to my backyard was purely for aesthetics. I simply wanted my garden to look neat and tidy. I have since discovered a bushel of benefits to gardening in raised beds, which is the first topic I'll address in this course. Now, these classes are in session whenever you're available. I've divided them up into 10 to 15-minute lessons that you can go back to and watch anytime. You'll have full on-demand access to the course, as well as to some helpful handouts with suggestions on information like materials and building tips, and even a simple raised bed design. Here's what I'm going to cover. Part 1 will focus on those benefits I mentioned. I'll explain why you might want to consider one or more raised beds instead of a traditional in-ground vegetable garden. You'll find out how raised beds can extend your growing season and how you can customize them to be whatever height, width, or length you need them to be. Session 2 will help you find that perfect location. How much sun does your chosen space ideally need to have? And this is where my personal experiences come in, because my first 2 raised beds that started me on my path to raised bed gardening are actually a bit shaded now. I live on a ravine, so I get dappled light from the tree canopy that's grown in over time and a lot less sun. So if you're disappointed about having a shady backyard, for example, I'll talk a bit about alternative locations. Now, this could be part of a front lawn, the corner of a deck, or even your driveway. We'll also talk about practical things like getting rid of grass. In part 3, we start to get into design ideas, and this is the fun part. What kind of raised bed do you want? What materials would you like to use? What kind of wood should you look for at the lumberyard? For session 4, I'll share some ideas for those who may not have the skills or a place to prep a project or even a set of tools. There are loads of raised bed design ideas that don't require much, if any, DIY skills. And for my last session, I'm going to go over just a few tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, including some notes about soil, so your raised bed is filled and ready to go, and you can start making a list of what you want to grow. My first raised beds were built and filled in the fall, allowing me to plant garlic for the following year. And then my other raised bed was ready for spring planting. I will say that once you have one raised bed, and I do recommend starting with just one if you're a beginner so as not to become overwhelmed that first season, but you'll probably soon realize you'd like to have more. My collection has expanded and continues to grow because I'm always looking for more room to grow my favorite crops and new to me veggies. I look forward to sharing advice and tips on building your first raised bed garden. So come join me at Savvy Gardening School to get started.